The moment James sat down on the worn leather couch in their small Chicago apartment and looked into his son Tyler's curious eyes, he knew there was no turning back. "Tyler, there's something important I need to tell you. I'm gay," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, expecting confusion or tears, but the boy's reply hit him like a freight train and sent him collapsing into sobs that shook his entire body. Tyler, only 11, tilted his head with a maturity far beyond his years and spoke softly. "I know, Dad. I saw you and Benjamin holding hands at the park last summer when you thought I was playing on the swings. I didn't say anything because I thought you didn't want me to know, and I was scared you'd stop loving me if I asked." The words hung in the air like smoke, and James felt the room spin as years of carefully built walls crumbled around him. He had spent so long hiding this part of himself, marrying Tyler's mother to please his traditional parents back in Ohio, divorcing quietly when the weight became too much, and raising his son alone while pretending everything was normal. Now, the one person he thought he could protect from the truth had been carrying it silently, and the guilt crashed over him like a wave. James pulled Tyler into a tight hug, tears streaming down his face, his mind racing through every decision that had led to this moment. He remembered the day he first admitted it to himself in college, the way his heart raced around certain guys in the dorm, the shame his father drilled into him about what a real man should be. "I'm sorry, buddy," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I never wanted you to feel scared or alone." Tyler patted his back awkwardly, the way kids do when they're trying to be brave. "It's okay, Dad. Does this mean Benjamin is your boyfriend? He seems nice." James froze, the mention of Benjamin's name pulling him back to the secret life he had tried so hard to keep separate. Benjamin, his colleague at the marketing firm downtown, the man who had become his anchor over the last 2 years. Their relationship started as late-night talks over coffee during deadlines, then stolen weekends in quiet suburbs where no one knew them. Benjamin had been patient, understanding the fear that kept James from going public, but now the truth was out in the most unexpected way. As the afternoon light faded through the blinds, James sat with Tyler, answering questions as honestly as he could without overwhelming the boy. Tyler asked about why James had married Mom, about whether he still loved her, about what being gay really meant. Each answer felt like peeling back layers of a life James had constructed to survive. By dinner time, Tyler seemed okay, even excited to meet Benjamin properly, but James could not shake the collapse inside him. He called in sick to work the next day, lying in bed replaying the conversation, wondering how he had failed so completely at protecting his son from the pain of secrets. Benjamin texted that evening, asking if everything was all right, but James could not bring himself to reply. The weight of traditional expectations from his parents, who still sent cards insisting he find a good woman and settle down, pressed down harder than ever. He had sacrificed so much already, and now the one relationship he thought was safe had exposed everything. The days that followed blurred into a fog of self-doubt. James took Tyler to school each morning, forcing smiles and normal routines, but inside he questioned every choice. Had he been selfish for keeping Benjamin in the shadows? Would Tyler's teachers notice something different in the boy? Society's quiet judgments loomed everywhere, from the PTA meetings where dads joked about sports and wives to the office where coming out could mean sideline projects. One afternoon, while picking Tyler up, James spotted his ex-wife's old friend at the gate and panicked, turning away before she could ask how he was doing. The misunderstanding already brewing in his mind. What if Tyler told someone at school, and it spread? What if his own mother called, sensing something wrong in his voice during their weekly check-ins? James knew he had to face Benjamin soon, to explain why the secret he had guarded so fiercely was now partly in the hands of an 11-year-old. The psychological toll mounted, his sleep broken by nightmares of losing custody or watching Tyler pull away. Yet in the quiet moments, holding his son close during bedtime stories, James felt the first spark of something new, a fragile hope that honesty might heal what hiding had broken. But the road ahead was long, filled with conversations he had avoided for decades, and the collapse he felt that day was only the beginning of a journey that would test every bond he held dear. James finally met Benjamin at their usual coffee shop near the office the following weekend, the same place where their friendship had slowly turned into something deeper 2 years earlier. Benjamin arrived with his usual warm smile, tall frame relaxed in a simple button-down, dark hair neatly combed, but his eyes searched James's face immediately. "You look like you haven't slept in days," he said, sliding into the booth across from him. James stared into his coffee, the steam rising like the emotions he could no longer contain. He told Benjamin everything, the coming out to Tyler, the boy's knowing reply, the way it had shattered the careful distance James had maintained. Benjamin listened without interruption, his hand reaching across the table to squeeze James's gently, a gesture hidden from the other customers, but full of the quiet strength that had drawn James to him from the start. "He's a smart kid," Benjamin said softly. "And you're a good dad for facing this. I never pushed you because I knew the cost, but maybe this is the push we both needed." Their story had begun in the fluorescent lights of the marketing firm, where James handled client accounts and Benjamin designed campaigns. James had noticed him immediately, the way Benjamin's laugh cut through the stress of deadlines, the kindness in how he mentored younger interns. For months, they were just colleagues, grabbing lunch and talking about everything except the things that mattered. Then one rainy evening after a big pitch, they ended up at Benjamin's apartment, sharing takeout and stories from their pasts. Benjamin had come out in college, faced his own family struggles in California, and built a life of quiet confidence. James confessed his hidden feelings for the first time, the years of denial, the marriage that felt like a cage, the divorce that left him raising Tyler alone. Their first real date was a hike outside the city, hands brushing accidentally, then intentionally, hearts opening under the open sky. But James always pulled back, terrified of what his conservative parents would say, what the world might do to his son if the truth leaked. Benjamin had understood, waiting patiently, sacrificing his own desire for public recognition to protect James's fragile world. Now, sitting in the coffee shop, James felt the weight of those sacrifices. "I thought I was protecting him," he admitted, voice thick. But Tyler already knew, and it hurt him more than the truth ever could. Benjamin nodded, eyes steady. "Love isn't about perfect hiding, James. It's about showing up even when it's scary." They spent the afternoon walking along the lakefront, the Chicago skyline sharp against the blue water, talking about next steps. Benjamin suggested meeting Tyler together, something low-key like a baseball game, to show the boy that this new reality could include happiness. James agreed, but doubt gnawed at him. What if his mother called and sensed the change in his voice? She had always pushed for him to remarry, sending church pamphlets and setting up blind dates during visits. His father, a retired factory worker, still used words like real men in every conversation. The family pressure had been the reason James buried his truth for so long, and now it threatened to crack everything open. That evening, back home with Tyler, James watched his son do homework at the kitchen table, the boy's concentration broken only by occasional questions about Benjamin. "Is he coming over soon?" Tyler asked, pencil tapping the paper. James smiled despite the knot in his stomach. "Soon, buddy. He's excited to hang out with you." The moment felt normal, almost hopeful. But later that night after Tyler was asleep, James sat on the porch staring at the city lights. A text from his mother arrived, asking when he would bring Tyler for a visit and hinting at a nice woman from her book club. The guilt returned, sharper now. He had lied to them for years, and the betrayal would cut deep when the truth finally surfaced. Benjamin called just before midnight, his voice a calm anchor. "Whatever happens, I'm here. We face it together." James hung up feeling a little lighter, but the psychological storm was building. Misunderstandings were inevitable, friends at work already whispering about his sudden distance, and the secret he had shared with Tyler now felt like a live wire ready to spark. The journey of acceptance was no longer just his own. It belonged to his son, to Benjamin, and to the family that might never understand. Yet in the quiet, James made a decision. He would not collapse again. He would stand, even if the ground shook beneath him. 998 words. File 3. The baseball game with Benjamin and Tyler turned out better than James had dared hope. They sat in the bleachers at Wrigley Field, the crowd's roar mixing with the crack of bats, and Tyler's laughter rang out when Benjamin explained the rules with exaggerated gestures. For a few hours, the weight lifted. Benjamin bought hot dogs and sodas, treating Tyler like a little brother he never had, and the boy beamed when Benjamin high-fived him after a home run. James watched them, heart swelling with a mix of joy and fear. This was the happiness he had denied himself, the simple family moment he had imagined in secret. On the drive home, Tyler fell asleep in the back seat, and Benjamin reached over to squeeze James's hand on the gear shift. "See? He's okay with it," Benjamin said softly. "We can build this." James nodded, but the warmth faded as soon as he dropped Benjamin off at his apartment. Alone in the car, the doubts returned. What if Tyler mentioned Benjamin at school? What if a teacher asked questions? Society's invisible pressure felt heavier in the suburbs, where neighbors waved politely but gossiped behind closed doors. The next week brought the first crack in their fragile peace. James's best friend Mike from college stopped by unannounced, the same Mike who had been his roommate during the years James was still married. They had stayed close after the divorce, Mike always the loyal one offering beers and advice. But when Mike saw Benjamin's jacket hanging by the door and Tyler casually mentioning Uncle Ben during dinner, the question started. "Wait, is this the guy from work you've been hanging with?" Mike asked later on the porch, voice low. James hesitated, then told him the truth. Mike's face shifted from surprise to something colder. "Man, I get it, but Tyler's just a kid. You sure this is the right time?" The words stung like a betrayal, not outright rejection, but the kind of doubt that planted seeds of fear. James defended himself, explaining the coming out and Tyler's response, but Mike left early, promising to call soon. The misunderstanding settled in James's chest like a stone. Mike had always been the straight friend who supported him through the divorce, yet now the loyalty felt conditional. At work the following Monday, the tension followed him. A colleague mentioned a new client who was conservative, and James caught sideways glances when he declined an after-work drink. Benjamin noticed too, pulling him aside in the break room. "They're sensing something. Maybe it's time we stop hiding here too." James shook his head, the societal pressure mounting. His parents called that evening, his mother chatting about a family reunion and his father grumbling about settling down. James dodged, heart racing, the traditional expectations he had internalized since childhood now clashing with the life he wanted. Tyler picked up on the mood, asking over breakfast if everything was okay with Uncle Ben. "He's great, buddy," James assured him, but inside the psychological toll grew. He began questioning his decisions, wondering if the sacrifice of secrecy had been worth the years of loneliness. Benjamin sensed the distance and suggested a weekend away, just the three of them at a cabin up north. Tyler loved the idea, packing his backpack with books and games. The cabin trip brought moments of peace. They hiked trails, roasted marshmallows, and Benjamin taught Tyler how to skip stones on the lake. James watched them, the romantic connection with Benjamin deepening in the simple acts of care. One evening by the fire, after Tyler went to bed, Benjamin pulled James close, their foreheads touching. "I love you," he whispered. "And I love that kid too. Whatever comes, we handle it." James felt the words heal something deep inside. But the next morning a text from Mike arrived, asking if they could talk. The message hinted at worry, but James sensed the underlying judgment. Back in Chicago, the rifts widened. Mike called, admitting he had told his wife, who worked at Tyler's school as a counselor. "I was just concerned for the boy," Mike said, but the betrayal cut deep. James hung up, anger mixing with sadness. The secret was spreading, not through Tyler but through the one friend he trusted. Family pressure intensified when his mother announced a surprise visit. James spent nights pacing, preparing explanations he was not ready to give. Yet through it all, Benjamin remained steady, sacrificing his own need for openness to support James's pace. The conflicts built slowly, each misunderstanding chipping away at James's resolve, forcing him to confront the truth that hiding had cost more than he realized. Growth was coming, painful and slow, but in Benjamin's eyes and Tyler's smile, James saw the possibility of a life without collapse. James's mother arrived on a crisp autumn Friday, suitcase in hand and questions already forming on her lips. She hugged Tyler tightly, commenting on how tall he was getting, then turned to James with that familiar searching look. "You seem tired, honey. Everything all right at work?" He deflected, showing her to the guest room. But the traditional expectations she carried filled the apartment like heavy perfume. Over dinner she talked about old neighbors back home, how their sons had married and started families, the subtle push James had heard his entire life. Tyler, bless him, kept the conversation light. But when Benjamin's name slipped out during a story about the cabin trip, his mother's eyebrows rose. Benjamin? The coworker? He sounds like a good friend. James felt the ground shift, the coming storm he had feared now at his doorstep. That night, after Tyler was asleep, she cornered him in the kitchen. You've been single too long, James. A boy needs a mother figure. The words triggered the old shame, the years he had spent trying to fit the mold she and his father had built. He almost told her then, but the fear held him back. The turning point came unexpectedly the next morning. Tyler, excited to show Grandma his new baseball glove from Benjamin, accidentally mentioned the park day and how Dad and Benjamin are like a team. His mother froze, coffee cup halfway to her lips. What do you mean, sweetheart? Tyler, innocent and proud, explained simply. Dad likes men, Grandma. Like in the movies. Benjamin is his boyfriend. The silence that followed was deafening. James watched his mother's face pale, the collapse he had felt weeks earlier now mirrored in her eyes. She set the cup down with shaking hands. James, is this true? He nodded, voice steady for the first time. Yes, Mom. I've been gay my whole life. I hid it because I thought it would disappoint you and Dad. The revelation spilled out, years of secrets pouring forth in the sunlit kitchen. His mother sat down heavily, tears welling. We raised you right. How could you? The words trailed off, but the hurt was clear, traditional values clashing with the son she thought she knew. Tyler looked between them, confused but brave. Grandma, it's okay. Dad's happy now. The major shift changed everything. His mother stayed the weekend, asking questions late into the night, her expectations cracking under the weight of truth. She did not fully accept it yet, but she did not leave either. James felt the psychological release, the decision to face her head-on, lifting a burden he had carried for decades. Benjamin came over for dinner on Sunday, nerves evident but resolve strong. He shook hands with James's mother, spoke kindly about Tyler, and in that moment James saw the possibility of bridges being built. Yet the consequences rippled outward. Mike texted an apology, admitting his wife had mentioned something at school, and now rumors were circulating among parents. James confronted the misunderstanding directly, meeting Mike for coffee and explaining the pain of conditional friendship. Mike listened, eyes downcast, promising to make it right. The betrayal had hurt, but the conversation led to a deeper understanding, Mike admitting his own fears about change. At work, James made the choice to tell his boss in a private meeting, sacrificing the safety of secrecy for authenticity. The boss, surprisingly supportive, assured him nothing would change. The growth was tangible. James began making decisions with courage, planning a small gathering for close friends to introduce Benjamin properly. Tyler thrived, his questions turning into excitement about having two dads in a way. The family visit ended with his mother hugging James tightly at the airport. I don't understand everything yet, she said, but I love you. The words were a balm, the unexpected redemption after years of distance. Benjamin and James walked Tyler to school the next day, hands brushing openly for the first time in public. The journey had tested them, misunderstandings and revelations forging stronger bonds. James looked at the two people he loved most, feeling the psychological healing take root. He had confronted the truth, faced the consequences, and emerged ready for whatever came next. The path to acceptance was not straight, but it was his own, built on love and the courage to stand tall. The weeks after his mother's visit brought a new rhythm to James's life, one filled with small victories and lingering shadows. He and Benjamin started planning a proper date night, something simple like dinner at a quiet Italian place downtown, while Tyler stayed with a trusted neighbor. The romantic connection between them deepened in these moments of openness, conversations flowing easily about dreams for the future, Benjamin's gentle encouragement helping James release the last threads of shame. You've carried enough alone, Benjamin said over candlelight, his hand resting on James's across the table. James felt seen in a way he never had, the love no longer hidden but celebrated in quiet ways. Yet societal pressure did not vanish overnight. At Tyler's school event, a few parents exchanged glances when James arrived with Benjamin, but Tyler held his head high, introducing Benjamin proudly as his dad's friend. The boy's resilience amazed James, a reminder that the collapse had been the catalyst for growth in all of them. A major misunderstanding arose when James's father called unexpectedly from Ohio. His mother had shared the news, and the conversation turned tense quickly. "This isn't the life we wanted for you," his father said gruffly, the traditional expectations ringing clear. James stood his ground, explaining the years of hiding and the freedom he felt now. The call ended without resolution, but James refused to let it pull him back. Benjamin was there that evening, listening as James processed the hurt, offering the sacrifice of his own time to help James draft a letter to his parents, words of love mixed with truth. The act of writing it together strengthened their bond, decisions leading to consequences that felt empowering rather than destructive. Work brought its own challenges when a conservative client pulled out of a project upon learning about James's personal life through office gossip. The loss stung, but James's boss stood by him, and Benjamin helped brainstorm new campaigns to fill the gap. The psychological growth was evident in how James handled the setback, turning rejection into motivation. Friendships tested further when Mike organized a group dinner to make amends, inviting old college buddies. Some accepted the news with awkward but genuine hugs, others distanced themselves politely. The rifts revealed who truly mattered, and James mourned the losses while cherishing the loyal ones. Tyler noticed the changes, asking thoughtful questions about why some people acted differently. James answered honestly, teaching his son about kindness and courage. One weekend they all drove to a local pride event, not marching but watching from the sidelines, Tyler waving a small flag Benjamin had bought him. The experience was powerful, the sense of community wrapping around them like a warm blanket. James felt the turning point solidify, the major shift from fear to pride reshaping his identity. As winter approached, James faced another sacrifice. His ex-wife, Tyler's mother, called after hearing rumors. The conversation was civil but emotional, her surprise turning to understanding as James explained the journey. She agreed to support Tyler through any questions, a relief that eased old wounds. Benjamin proposed a holiday trip together, just the three of them, and James accepted, the decision marking his commitment to building the family they deserved. The psychological consequences of past hiding faded as new memories formed. Tyler bonded with Benjamin over video games and science projects, the relationship blossoming naturally. James watched them, heart full, the love he had fought for finally at peace. Yet he knew the path was ongoing, societal pressures waiting in everyday moments. The growth came from each choice, each honest conversation, proving that facing the truth brought strength. Benjamin's steady presence reminded him daily that acceptance was not a destination but a daily practice. Together, they navigated the complexities, emerging stronger with every challenge overcome. Spring brought renewal to Chicago, the city blooming as James's world continued to transform. He and Benjamin moved in together quietly, the decision a natural step after months of shared weekends and daily support. Tyler adjusted seamlessly, excited to have Benjamin's art supplies in the spare room and his cooking skills in the kitchen. The three of them created routines that felt right, movie nights and park walks weaving a tapestry of belonging. James's parents visited again, this time with softer edges. His mother baked cookies with Tyler while his father watched a game with Benjamin, awkward silences giving way to tentative conversations. The acceptance was slow, earned through persistence and love, but it came. James reflected often on the collapse that started it all, grateful for the way it forced him to grow. A final confrontation arose when an old co-worker posted something online that hinted at James's story without permission. The betrayal stung, spreading whispers through professional circles, but James chose not to hide. He addressed it directly in a team meeting, speaking calmly about living authentically. The response surprised him, colleagues offering support and stories of their own. Benjamin stood beside him through it, the partnership a pillar of strength. Tyler, now more confident, even defended his dad at school when a classmate asked questions. The boy's words, "My dad's brave and I love him," echoed the reply that had once shattered James and now filled him with pride. Sacrifices had been made, friendships tested and some lost, but the rewards were real. James felt the full circle of his journey, from denial to openness, the psychological healing complete. One sunny afternoon in the park where it had all begun for Tyler's eyes, James and Benjamin sat on a bench watching the boy play. Benjamin turned to him, eyes warm. "We made it." James smiled. The romantic happiness he had longed for finally his. The story was not over, but the chapter of fear had closed. He had confronted every truth, made every hard decision, and emerged with a family built on honesty. The world was not perfect, but it was theirs. Was it worth risking everything by coming out so early to his young son? Or should some truths always wait until children are older?